It has long since been the number one sporting event in the United States. For a long, long time, the NFL has dominated, and the NFL crown jewel is the Super Bowl. Welcome into the voice of college football, or the voice of college football. We're going to be the voice of football today. Appreciate you being here. Sorry for the late notice, but if you saw the state of the voice of college football following the national championship game just a few days after, that has been our one live stream outside of the one big thing. That is the one big thing in regards to the new show that we're presenting here at the Voice of College Football in conjunction with College Football Mafia. So be looking out for that. That's going to be a big deal. The one big thing is a once a month show that we have started here again in conjunction with College Football Mafia, the Voice of College Football, where we present one big topic each month. And we're going to go heavy hitters, bring on some great guests as we did with former Fox Sports executive Bob Thompson this past week. And we've got a great guest lined up. Maybe an athletic director. How about that? They could really give us some insight into what's going on across college football. Maybe an athletic director showing up on our next show here on the One Big Thing. But we're going to talk about the Super Bowl. Appreciate you all being here. Leave those comments, questions there in the chat. I'll take your calls. I don't know if I'm going to be here for 10 minutes or 10 hours but it is the Voice of College Football presented by FanDuel, our friends at FanDuel, and we'll check out those Super Bowl odds. We're talking everything Super Bowl. You can call me about anything concerning college football or the NFL, the Super Bowl, but I'm in a bit of a Super Bowl mood. I even labored for hours and hours in preparation of the show here to dress up the set. Look at that. In honor of Super Bowl, whatever the number is, Super Bowl 2026, whatever the number is. What are we on here? First Super Bowl was 1967. 67. Is this Super Bowl 60? 59, 60, something like that. In honor of the two quarterbacks, we got our North Carolina and USC helmets right there. I do not believe that a USC quarterback has won the Super Bowl. Has a USC quarterback even played in the Super Bowl? Started a Super Bowl game? USC. Todd Marinovich, no. Rodney Peete, no. Carson Palmer, no. Vince Evans, no. Cody Kessler, no. JD Daniels, no. USC quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. And USC is one of the great quarterback schools of all time. But no Super Bowl quarterbacks for USC, right? Who am I missing? Am I missing somebody? Maybe we'll go through that exercise. We'll count up all the quarterbacks and the conferences and all of that business. But in honor of Sam Darnold, USC, and Drake May of North Carolina, there are the helmets right there. Seattle and New England get together with the Seahawks, I believe, a 4 to 4.5 point favorite, something in that range. Probably should have won the first Super Bowl meeting between those two teams roughly 10 years ago. One of the great Super Bowls of all time, of course. Just give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. Pete Carroll, speaking of USC ties, Pete Carroll, give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. You have another Super Bowl championship, and you will be lauded as one of the great coaches in the history of the NFL with back-to-back Super Bowl titles. Only a few coaches have done that. Bill Belichick, of course. Chuck Noll, Vince Lombardi, and probably a few others, Jimmy Johnson. But Pete Carroll, you had it right there. You blew it, calling for a pass play. So we're going to just talk Super Bowl. I'm in a Super Bowl mood, as I mentioned. Even though I've not followed these teams, I don't follow the NFL anymore. Did I watch? I watched a little bit of the AFC Championship game. I was over at a friend's house and we had it on. We weren't super paying attention. We were talking, not really paying too much attention to Broncos, Patriots. The weather seemed to impact that game heavily. And then, of course, the Seahawks won the other game against, who'd they play? The Rams? and I think they blew them out. So, yeah, we'll talk anything Super Bowl. The comments and questions are welcome. We'll get to those in just a second. And of course, you can give me a call to talk Super Bowl or college football. A lot of college football news going out. Check out the video. I think it's near 1 million views at this point. The video that I posted today looking at Conference USA. So we're looking at all the conferences, breaking down all the conferences, all the results of the conferences, non-conference results, and then we're going to add it all together with one final video. And throughout this off season, again, as I mentioned in the State of the Voice of College Football address, I don't know when I'm going to be here. I will just be here. And if anybody's here to listen, that's great. If you're not, that's fine. I understand. But I will be here for you at various points during the off season. But I believe I'm going to get to all-time rankings. All-time rankings. That should cause quite the stir and argument. All-time rankings. We'll get to that at some point. I'm going to rank these coaches' hires. I'm going to rank the coaches like I do every offseason. All the stuff that we do in the offseason we'll get to eventually. If you've checked out the team channels, I have been busy over on the team channels, posting USC content, Clemson, Arkansas, Miami, Oregon, and we're going to do some other ones as well. Appreciate y'all being here. Christopher Foot's here. Iowa 6 is here. GDSPE is here, rooting for Stafford and the Rams. Now Stafford has retired. Matthew Stafford retired. I did not see that. And Adam, we appreciate you being here. Yeah, don't get me started on. I know nothing about Bad Bunny. Is it Bad Bunny? I know nothing except the guy's a weirdo for wearing dresses and looking like a fool. He's a clown. He does not have my respect in any way. And I know nothing about the guy. I would not recognize a song unless maybe it's some super popular song and I just don't realize that it's him. Somebody brought him up to me 4 or 5 years ago about going to a Bad Bunny concert. And I was like, I have no idea who you're talking about. And I've not looked into it to discover this individual's quote unquote music. I'm guessing it's not really good music. It probably sucks. And I've seen a lot of disturbing pictures with the guy acting like a woman. So, yeah, really not for me. Stick to your lane. You were created to be a man, to be a real man, not to be a pathetic individual. All right, Adam, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Mark, the Seahawks are a disgrace for throwing on 2nd and goal in 2015. So that was 11 years ago. They get revenge and win 31-28. Drew Aller throws an interception while tailgating. I could see that. You know, Drew Aller's doing some tailgating. Somebody just wants to, you know, he just feels like airing it out a little bit. And, you know, he throws it to some just bystander just walking by. I can see that. Beck, in quotes, throws one at the NFL experience and still doesn't get the girl. Adam's favorite targets can leave college football, but Adam will not give it up. Adam, thank you so much for the contribution. It's much appreciated. Drew Aller, you poor soul. And Carson Beck has been added to the target practice by Adam. Jackson's here. Appreciate Jackson being here. Catch Jackson on the Alabama channel with Jeffrey and company, Travion. That is Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, talking Alabama football. Bad Bunny worked for Hugh Hefner. Jim's not necessarily going to watch the game from the start unless it's competitive and he will tune in. 5:30 p.m. It's usually a 6:20 kickoff. So maybe your Central Time. Yeah, Iowa 6. You must be Central Time. They usually start the official game window at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I know not to flip it on because I'm going to see probably a bad rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, most likely, not all the time. My personal favorite of all time, while the vote would go to Whitney Houston, probably my favorite of all time was Beyonce. I thought Beyonce did the best national anthem. I think that was Patriots Panthers, I believe, 2004, I believe, was Beyonce. I don't know that I've listened to many since then. I was in such a Super Bowl mood last night. That I watched Super Bowl 14. I just kind of randomly picked a Super Bowl. I wanted a competitive Super Bowl, a good Super Bowl. So I picked Super Bowl 14, 1980. And I just looked it up. Where the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel. So I'm pretty familiar with that game. I probably recognized and forecasted about 20, 25 plays that I knew, okay, this is what's coming up here. But I didn't know every play of the game. But Rams Steelers, Pasadena Rose Bowl, great game. Terry Bradshaw, the MVP, despite throwing 3 picks. Rams should have, man, they were very close to hanging in there and winning that game. Very close to winning the game. 5 minutes left. Their fringe red zone. 5 minutes left. Vince Ferragamo had taken the Rams all the way down the field to fringe red zone. 5 minutes left, down by 5. But Jack Lambert with the interception. And then Bradshaw hit Stallworth, and the Steelers completed the drive to score with about a minute left to ice the game. So maybe I'll do that tonight. Going to pop in a Super Bowl. Just pick a Super Bowl and say, I'm going to sit here and watch the Super Bowl. And you can watch it. I watched the entire game, watched the entire broadcast. I didn't skip through it. I didn't go like play to play. It still only took like maybe an hour 40 to watch the whole game. Pat Summerall on the call with Tom Brookshire, CBS broadcast. Good stuff. Jim's going with Whitney, and Jim is going with Whitney. Bradshaw's Super Bowl record. Well, if you want to hit me with trivia questions, I can. If you take out the last close to 10 Super Bowls, I will match Super Bowl trivia with anyone. With anyone. Now, I will say, if you're talking about Bradshaw's Super Bowl passing record, he set the passing record. It was Bart Starr, 250 in the very first Super Bowl. Then it was Bradshaw, threw for 318 against the Cowboys. And then that was eclipsed by Joe Montana, who took it to 357. That was against the Bengals. And then Kurt Warner threw for 414. So that was the Super Bowl record for a while. That was against Kurt Warner, threw for 414. Kurt Warner, I think this gets overlooked. Kurt Warner has one of the great Super Bowl resumes ever. He threw for roughly 300 yards in the loss to the Patriots. That one I can't really blame him for, because Kurt Warner lost 2 Super Bowls where he never got a chance to bring his team back. I kind of take those situations off the plate of the quarterback to say, you didn't have a chance to bring your team back. The other team walked it off. You didn't have a chance. but that was Kurt Warner against the Patriots. And then, of course, they won. They had won against the Titans on the famous play down at the goal line. One of my favorite stories from conducting interviews at ESPN for prospective employees was, still remember sitting in this conference room, and this prospective employee was bragging about how much he knew about the NFL. And there's about 4 of us interviewing him, and a few people that knew me well kind of looked at me like, seriously? Really? He's telling you how much he knows about the NFL? We'll see. And I never make a judgment call on that. Maybe the dude did know more about the NFL than me. Kind of doubt it. But so I said at the end of the interview, I got one more question for you. Got one last question. Just curious here. If your job employment here, us hiring you, depended on you answering this NFL question, would you take that bet? And he said, absolutely. I said, okay. 2000 Super Bowl, Rams, Titans. Last play of the game. Who threw the ball? Who caught the ball? Who made the tackle? So I will leave that question out for everyone. 2000 Super Bowl, Rams, Titans, final play of the game. If you remember it well, there was a tackle at the goal line, stopped short by 1 yard, or we may have had overtime. Who threw the ball? Who caught the ball? Who made the tackle? That's the thing most people don't remember, and that's the most important component of the play that saved the Super Bowl win for St. Louis. All right, we got Bootzilla here, and I'm going to trust that you did not look that up. Very, very good right there. Very nice. Steve McNair throws to Kevin Dyson. Kevin Dyson stretches for the goal line. Mike Jones, number 52, Rams linebacker with the tackle at the goal line, stops him short about the 1.5. Was not close. It was close, obviously, one more stride, and he probably would have tied the game and sent it into overtime, the first Super Bowl to go to overtime, but like it wasn't a close call, like they really needed replay or anything. He was this short of stretching out for the goal line in desperation. So great tackle by Mike Jones. And there you go. Okay. Adam is asking me that just to get under my skin, I believe. Because I know who won every Super Bowl. Come on. Joe's first Super Bowl was Super Bowl 30 in 1996. Cowboys beat the Steelers after a horrible performance by Steelers quarterback Neil O'Donnell. Didn't start watching Super Bowls till you were 15. Yes, he threw 2 huge interceptions to who? The Super Bowl MVP that year. Who was the Super Bowl MVP for the Cowboys? In the meantime, we got Dr. Buckeye showing up.
Yes, Super Bowl memories, Mark. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I heard your. By the way, my starting point, like every other sport, in the Super Bowl and NFL football is no different, is the mid '80s. My first Super Bowl I ever watched was supposed to be a classic and is arguably the greatest matchup of quarterbacks in the history of the Super Bowl, which was Marino and Montana in '84 after the '84 season going in '85. Great line by somebody in that game. It was Dan Marino's season turned into Joe Montana's day, was the line after that game. And I was, the thing about it is the first two teams I remember in the Super Bowl were two of the most dominant teams of all time, which are the 84 49ers and the 85 Bears. So I saw two of the most dominant single season teams of all time with the first two Super Bowls I watched.
You did.
So
I remember winning a lot of money on the Niners win against the Dolphins. I was in high school, and to win like 50 or $60 as like a sophomore in high school was a big deal. Like I was ecstatic. I
there
put
you
every
go.
dollar I could on the Niners to win that game. I had no doubts that they were winning that game.
Yeah, I mean, Marino that season, though, is still one of the greats of all time. I mean, to throw 48 touchdowns in 1984 was ridiculous.
There, to me, just wasn't a great comparison between those two teams.
Yeah, you could see that Montana had the far better supporting cast, obviously. Yes. And that might have been their best. Do you think that was their best team, or do you think 89 was their best team, Mark?
Well, they had Jerry Rice in 89, of course.
Right.
I'd have to look at defensive personnel, but I would. Yeah, it's a great call. I don't really have an opinion on it. Those would be the two, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've only saw a couple of close games. I mean, remember when I first started watching the Super Bowl, we had Blowout City USA for like forever. I mean, the AFC was the JV, and I mean, basically at that particular period of time, Mark. And the first really good one was Montana to John Taylor was great in 88 against, Ickey and Boomer and that team, which was a great ending, by the way.
Yes, and people forget that Lewis Breeden, I think it was, should have caught an interception, should have intercepted Montana the play or maybe two plays before the Taylor touchdown. You see things like that, or you think back on those things, and they would completely change the history of these legacies. Guy catches an interception. Cincinnati's winning the Super Bowl, not San Francisco and Joe Montana.
See, I remember so many things about that game because Tim McCrumry breaking his leg early in that game.
Yes.
I remember the guy, Stanley Wilson, got caught for drugs before the game.
Yes.
Who played for Cincinnati. Stanford Jennings returning a kickoff in that game. And then, you can make a case Montana should have been MVP of 4 Super Bowls, Mark. You know what I mean? Jerry Rice had an incredible day. You can't take anything away from what Jerry did that day, but you can make a case Montana should have had 4 Super Bowl MVPs.
Yeah, the quarterback should be the automatic lean in my estimation, because obviously he's running the entire offense, and Rice did not catch the game-winning touchdown. He did, I believe, catch passes for 215, I think was the number.
Yeah.
So I have no issue with who won the Super Bowl MVP. I remember Jerry Rice, if I'm correct on this, felt slighted because even though he won the Super Bowl MVP, this was at a time, and I don't know if they still do this, where the Super Bowl MVP, they would grab them to do the big Disney, I just won the Super Bowl MVP. Now what are you doing next? Well, I'm going to Disney. And they still grabbed Montana to do that.
Yeah, he stepped into that drive at the end, though, was something, man. For him to drive that field, was incredible that year. Because I remember that year, Steve Young had taken his job for a portion of the season that year, and there was kind of the debate where they had those two quarterbacks because they had Young and they had Montana at the time.
Yeah.
And now 90 is also one of the great Super Bowls of all time.
Yeah.
The Norwood game.
Yeah.
Somebody had said that they thought that game was boring. I think they were nuts. I had a debate with somebody about that. The thing that always struck me about that game, Mark, is the Giants played a perfect game and nearly lost. If you think about it, they played a nearly perfect game. They controlled the ball for 40-some minutes. They held down that Bills offense for the most part. They converted on third down. They didn't turn the ball over. They played nearly a flawless game. And if Norwood moves the ball a little bit further, man, how's history different?
The Giants played pretty much a similar game to what they played against San Francisco in the NFC Championship game. Speaking of the
Yes.
Niners, of course, they were looking for a three-peat, and they were minutes away from salting away. They were a couple first downs away from salting away a gutsy 13-12 win against the Giants, and Roger Craig fumbled, and I don't know. I don't remember who knocked it loose. Maybe it was Carl Banks. And of course, George Martin had that enormous hit on Joe Montana.
Was that Leonard Marshall? I think that was Leonard Marshall.
Leonard Marshall.
Yeah,
yes,
it was Leonard Marshall. Yeah.
Leonard Marshall.
Yep.
And I think Banks made the hit in LT, the recovery. If I recall correctly, I might be wrong on that. But at midfield, and then of course a few plays after that, Barr hits the game winner. And there you go.
Barr. Yeah, that was they had a really good shot to 3-peat. And by the way, San Francisco and Buffalo would have been an incredible Super Bowl. By the way, that would have been an interesting one to watch that year. By the way,
yeah,
especially with the way that K gun was coming into the offense. Remember, they'd scored like 90-some points in 2 games combined. I mean, they were lighting
they beat the Raiders
up
51-3 in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, Bo Jackson had got knocked out the game before against Cincinnati. I remember that game. It hurt his hip, ended his career. Now, the one I did want to comment that the one that you posted a video to, the game that decided the 1970s, Mark, the Steelers and the Cowboys in that Super Bowl.
Still breaks my heart.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Dallas was a better team the second time they faced Pittsburgh than the first time they played Pittsburgh, probably, Mark. I mean, because they'd rebuilt Doomsday, they'd added Dorsett. They were just a more complete team probably when they saw them in 78. And that game swayed on, 2 or 3 plays, Mark? I think the Jackie Smith, but then Randy White dropped the ball because he had a cast on his hand that cost him late in that game too.
The big plays in that game were that it was a back and forth. It was 14 all at half. 14 all at, it might have been 14-7 Steel. Anyway, I think it was 14 all at half. And, or maybe Rocky Blyard caught a touchdown right before half to make it 21-14. Anyway, the Cowboys, it's late third quarter. They're driving down the field to hopefully, in my camp, tie the game. And it's like 3rd and 6. They make a really good call. Jackie Smith's completely lost in the secondary. They don't cover him. He's wide open. And he should have just flat out caught the football. He's a football player. He's a tight end. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He dropped the pass. But if there is something that's missed on a lot of people, and Staubach blames himself. He said he should have just rifled it at him. But if you do see the replay, he did see that he was just so wide open. He did kind of pull the string on it and make Jackie Smith kind of slide. But still, the ball hit him right in the chest and he dropped the ball. And then it was this cascade of mistakes or bad officiating, a little bit of both. The Steelers, Roy Gerella, God rest his soul. I assume he's not with us any longer. Maybe he is. I guess he wouldn't be that ancient, but you talk about one of the worst kickers to kick for one of the greatest teams in history. I don't know how this guy kept a job. He was terrible. Roy Gerella was terrible. And he was kicking off and he botched the kick. He didn't kick it deep. He kicked it along the ground unintentionally. And yes, Randy White was playing up and he had a cast on his arm and he couldn't hold on to the ball and he fumbled. That gave the Steelers a possession. And then Benny Barnes, Lynn Swann tripped over him. And that was a
pass interference
bogus call. Yeah. David, I will say, for all the purists that get on here, and I agree with them in a lot of ways about the physicality of the game and all those sorts of things. If you watch, and I watched Super Bowl 14, every play of it last night, 1980, sat down, I just thought, I want to watch Super Bowl, an old Super Bowl. And I have a pretty good recollection of that game. There were certainly 20 or 25 plays in that game. I knew they were coming. Okay, this is going to happen here. So I knew, but I didn't have a complete photographic memory of the game, but good handle on the game. Anyway, should have seen pass interference calls in that game. They would have never been called. Now, never.
Well, yeah, they said that Mel Blount, who was one of the great corners at that time, and the way he played what bump and run man
Yeah.
coverage would have not been able to do that today. I mean,
No, no, no,
obviously.
no, no, no. I disagree. I'm completely flipped on the other side.
Oh, you think Mel Blount
Oh,
would
he
be
could play. What we see between cornerbacks and wide receivers on every play in both college and NFL would be called pass interference 40 years ago.
well? See, I thought that they were being far more generous with the pass interference flags a few years ago because they wanted to get the passing numbers up. You know?
Well, maybe they were. I wasn't watching the NFL, but I mean,
Oh, okay,
generally over the course of time, if you recall, and I know you weren't watching the game at the time, but you've delved into the past.
sure,
1978 is when they changed. They went to 16 games.
yes,
They changed the holding call for offensive linemen. They made it more liberal. So they wanted better pass protection. Yeah, they were wanting to elevate passing offense. And then they also instituted the 5-yard chuck rule. And otherwise, you couldn't basically touch a receiver. Like there was a play where a Rams receiver, I think it was Preston Denard, is running by, and Donnie Shell basically just bumps shoulders with him
right.
as they're running. Pass interference.
Well, did you ever see that replay of what like George Atkinson or Tatum did to like Swan in like the mid '70s? One of those hits that he put on him as he was coming across the middle. There
Yeah.
would be, I mean, all
I've
time
watched
great,
all that. Of course. Yeah.
all time great Buckeye. He would have a hard time, in
Yeah, but the
today.
rules were different then.
Yeah, that's true.
This was like 74, 75. They
That's true.
drastically changed the rules in 1978.
Well, and I agree with you because if you notice, that's when kind of like Air Coryell and some of these better passing games started to really kind of take off. Was probably what,
Yeah.
late '70s, right, Mark?
Yes. We only had one 4,000-yard passer in the history of the NFL, and that was Joe Namath in 1960, I believe, 7. And then starting in 1980, Dan Fouts, Brian Sipe, all these guys started throwing for 4,000 yards. Steve
Yeah.
Bartkowski.
Well, that's where I think Pittsburgh kind of adapted at that time because they became more of a passing team. I think in the late '70s, where they were more built behind Blyer and Franco Harris in the run game, probably earlier to mid '70s. And but that's how the NFL was built, like in the '60s into the mid '70s. Is a run game. The great Green Bay teams, those Dolphins teams were built around a run game that won. So I totally get what you're saying. I will say, by the way, that was a tough one for I know Coach Landry. By the way, Mark, I know he's your all-time favorite coach. Think about if you once told me about John Cooper. If you flip a few plays, and I'm not trying to compare him to John Cooper, but if you flip a few plays in Tom Landry's history, he's got a few more than 2 Super Bowl rings.
Oh, if you flip a few plays, like right now, he's considered top 5 to 10. I think
top 5 to 10.
Most would consider him in the top 5, but it's obviously as time goes on, there are other great Andy Reid and others jump into the conversation. So he might be, for a lot of people, more like between 5 and 10. Oh my word. He had, don't get me started, David, but he has Super Bowl 1. He would have played in Super Bowl 1, but Don Meredith threw an interception in the end zone against Green Bay in the NFL title game in Dallas. And then more famously was the next season, of course, was the Ice Bowl in Green Bay. Cowboys have a lead the entire second half, and they lose in the final 10 seconds on the Bart Starr sneak. And I'm not saying that the officials had anything to do with that. Those are just very close, excruciating, close games.
Sure.
And then something that you probably haven't come across, but there is a great NFL films on this that I can't find anymore. But in Super Bowl 5, the
Blunder Bowl.
The Blunder Bowl, very good. Linebacker Chuck Howley with 3 turnovers. He was the Super Bowl MVP. Yeah, it was the Jim O'Brien kick at the gun, 16-13. Colts beat the Cowboys. There is a play in that game. Cowboys are winning by a touchdown, going for a 2-touchdown lead in the second half, which in a defensive-minded game would have been an enormous lead. There's a fumble in the end zone by Dwayne Thomas, and the NFL Films does a great breakdown of this, that the Cowboys recovered the ball in the end zone and
Wow.
the officials inexplicably gave it to the Colts
Wow.
in a touchback. And then they tied the game. And then Craig Morton throws an interception to lose the game, but basically set up the. Oh, yeah. And then he had the 2 Steelers games.
Yes.
We're highlighting the second one. The first one, as you note, I don't think there's any question. The Steelers were the better team.
Yeah.
They might have been the better team the second time, too. I'm not saying that, but they were clearly the better team. The Cowboys were kind of a surprise Super Bowl team.
That was the Hail Mary year, I think, Mark.
But they still had a very good, they were throwing Hail Marys at the gun.
Yeah.
They had a 10-7 lead in the second half, and they were, they were right there. And they had a few, bad things go, which in every football game, I'm not making excuses or saying they should have won, but they could have easily won that game. And then just a myriad of NFC championship game losses.
The Danny White years, yeah.
Yeah, the Danny White years, of course, the catch, the San Francisco game, and Danny White got knocked out with a concussion against the Redskins at RFK the last time Landry took them to an NFC. He took them to 10 conference championship games in 13 years.
Right, and 20 straight winning seasons, Mark, I believe it was, or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, that's my guy.
No, it is consistency, and then what he did with the flex and 3-4 defense and shotgun offense, I think is revolutionary. I totally agree with you. I mean, it's interesting where you place him because, like I said, now he could have more than 2 Super Bowls. I mean, to be fair, but his level of consistency was incredible.
Yeah.
By the way, I do think that Super Bowls, I've been fortunate, like late 90s, the Super Bowls have finally gotten better. We've had a run, and I think I was telling you this because we were kind of talking about NIL and the portal, and I was equating it to when the NFL got free agency, how it kind of balanced the league more. And you got, and by remember the first, I thought that the AFC was getting a little bit closer to the NFC, those last couple losses, because Neil O'Donnell threw the 2 bad interceptions. Dallas's third team probably wasn't as good as their first 2 teams.
Yep.
Troy
Aikman talk about that.
Yeah, and then even 96 with New England Green Bay, if our old buddy Dez returning the kickoff, that was a good game until the kickoff happened. I mean, that was a fairly close game too. And that pretty much ended it for New England and Bledsoe and Parcells' chances. Yeah. Interesting how that changed history. Parcells leaves. His defensive coordinator was Bill Belichick that year. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
speaking of Aikman, there's some great audio with Aikman after Jimmy Johnson left and Switzer took over, of Aikman basically coaching that team, basically running that sideline. It was so dysfunctional, and Aikman just being pissed off at the lack of accountability and structure, and him basically running that team.
Well, Jerry once said, I can get any moron to go coach this team to win a Super Bowl. In some ways, he was validated by that, though. Yeah, with Switzer. So, but yeah, I mean, I think late 90s, like the first one that kind of where it flipped was really that Denver Green Bay one, where the AFC broke the streak and Elway broke the AFC string there. And we had if you look at starting, I think 97 through the present day, a majority, more than half of the Super Bowls have been 1 possession or less games.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, the worst one that comes to mind for me, well, you had Seahawks over the Broncos. Of course, that was just a train wreck, awful game. I think 22-0 or 29-0 at half.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just last year we had a bad one. And then the Ravens Giants, you knew after a couple series, like, okay, there's no comparison between these 2 teams. But other than that, even not the better ones have been, been decent games, have been competitive. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the one in 97 was really good when Green Bay was going for back-to-back and Elway won his first. You mentioned 99 turned out to be a really good game. It was kind of ugly early on. Yeah. By the way, 2 all-time great Buckeyes in that game, and Eddie George and Orlando Pace.
Yep.
The thing I remember about, I mean, it might still be the best ending of a Super Bowl ever, Mark, when you think about it. Might be the best ending.
Yeah, when you think about a guy being tackled, yes, stretching for the goal line at the 1 yard line, that's about as good as it gets. And Mike Jones, the Rams linebacker, number 52, might be one of the most unsung heroes. I don't know that a lot of people remember his name.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean and Kevin Dyson, kind of two unknown guys, and they are together. It was one of the biggest plays in the history of the Super Bowl.
And wasn't Dyson, he was involved. I don't remember if he was the last guy because I think it was Frank Wycheck, or was Wycheck the first recipient of
He
the
flipped it.
Music City Miracle?
Yeah, he flipped it to Dyson. I think Dyson was the one that took it in
Yes.
music.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, those Tennessee teams were pretty good. It's amazing because Warner was really close to winning 3 Super Bowls and played great,
Yes.
really, in all 3 Super
Yes.
Bowls.
I don't know if you were online, but I mentioned him right out of the gate
Yeah.
tonight. That his stat line in all 3 games was he put up big numbers in those games.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will about New England, but they were always in great Super Bowls, whether they won or whether they lost.
Yeah.
They were, and they've been a lot in the news lately, obviously. But I think that I mean the one against the Rams in beating that team,
it was a bit of a yawner. Yeah.
No, the 20-17 one, the after 9/11 one, their first one.
Oh yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one where, I actually think that's where coaching really showed up in that game, because Mike Martz really got taken to school, I always thought, in that Super Bowl, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think that Belichick, obviously, his calling card defense, one of the greatest of all time, and game planned and had time to work on it, and limiting that team and that offense to 17 points. Yes, masterful.
Yeah, I always said that I think that it helped because those two teams played early in the year. You know what I mean? And it was a good game in Foxborough. And I think the same thing happened to the Giants in 2007 when the Patriots were going for undefeated. Yeah. I always felt that it helped the Giants that they played that last game in the Meadowlands, and it was a great football game. Mm-hmm. And it was a back and forth. And as that team was going on closer and closer towards the end of the season, and I know it's the NFL and games are always going to be close, I just thought towards the end of the year that they could be had, that the 2007 Patriots could be had. Yep. That somebody was going to get them, as good as they were, and they were great. And what Brady did that year with Moss was all-time great. I always wonder, I just thought that the right team could have gotten them. And that Giants D-line played incredible that day too.
Absolutely. Well, David, I've got quite a line forming here.
Yeah, well, I always good to talk Super Bowl memories. Are you going to get back together after the game and have a little conversation tomorrow, Mark?
It doesn't appear that way.
Oh, man. I like your post game, Mark. We usually do.
I would enjoy that as well, but I believe I've got some other plans for that. So
okay. Any shows on the horizon? We'll be checking back with you.
Yes, they'll be popping up at some point.
All right, Mark. You take care. Always good to talk to you, man.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Good to hear from David there. Dr. Buckeye. A few things to keep track of here. One would be we've got some merch available for you. VOCFB.com. You see it right there. VOCFB.com. Check out the merch. Also, super chat coming in from Adam. We appreciate Adam. What do we have here? Adam says, Mark, ICE will arrest Bad Bunny. I've had enough squabbles about such things recently. I don't need to get into that. ICE will arrest Bad Bunny. Well, if he's an illegal, I hope they do. During the halftime show while Suspicious Minds plays in the background. Dylan Raiola will be at the local urgent care clinic dealing with depression, knowing he will be backing up Dante Moore. Adam, I don't know where you dream these up, but they're entertaining. Thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that. Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. I like to call out things like this. Last week, we did a show with our buddy Nathan Brown of College Football Mafia. We had on Bob Thompson, formerly of CBS Sports. We're going to have on a big guest once a month. We're going to call it One Big Thing. And it was funny because Nathan simulcasted the show over on College Football Mafia. I went over there. There were like 5 or 6 comments to the show. And one guy was calling me, what did he call me? Some kind of e-beggar or something. Yeah. These are the kind of people I would love to have call and make these comments directly. Yes, I do come on here more than anybody. Not now, I understand that, but historically come on here more than anybody in college football and deliver more content than anybody around historically, not anymore, but historically. And yes, we got FanDuel. So I got to mention FanDuel. This is presented by FanDuel. So sorry, take away from the content for like 8 seconds to mention that. And yes, we've got an Amazon link. And we would urge you to please use the Amazon link. When you watch the show, when you shop on Amazon, please use the Amazon link that we provide. It does not cost you a penny. And you can help us grow and build the voice of college football. All right, let's get to the calls that we still have here. We got Trey showing up. Trey, what's going on?
What's up, Mark? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I like Super Bowl stuff. And I remember my first Super Bowl was the Broncos and Packers when I was 1.5, and my parents had that on as they told me. But the first one I actually paying attention got me into Super Bowl watching was the Ravens and Giants, and that was kind of a bad Super Bowl. I think we all knew the Ravens were going to stomp the Giants that year. We all know that.
Packers, Broncos, you were 1.5, and you remember that game.
No, my parents told me about it. There was a picture of me watching the Super Bowl with my dad. So I like John Elway.
2 years later, you're 3.5, and you remember that game.
Yep.
Okay.
It's amazing. I love it, especially that game with the Broncos and Packers. You look at two of the greatest, one of the two of the greatest Super Bowl quarterbacks of all time is John Elway and Brett Favre. That is like a great matchup. You don't really see it nowadays because these quarterbacks these days are not as good as they are. No way. John Elway with his missing rings. He had a lot of missing rings he could have won, especially with those good Bronco teams. And he fell short, and he finally got over a good Brett Favre team. So I like Brett Favre. Some of these missing rings, they had good
he was missing rings and he was falling short. He was falling short by about 40 points.
Oh yeah. I mean, he had the teams. No doubt he had the teams.
No, he didn't have the teams. No, Trey. No. He did not have the teams to win Super Bowls. No.
He got way over there.
He did. Getting there, it's almost like college football has been many times.
Sure.
He had the team to get to the Super Bowl in a weak conference. He did not have the team to win a Super Bowl. They were not in the league with San Francisco. They were not in the league of the New York Giants or the Redskins. They got
a point.
Crushed.
I don't think they would even make it past if they had to do it again, make it past. If they were in the NFC with the 49ers and the Cowboys, and the NFC was a gauntlet. I mean, come on. Dang. It was a different team in the Super Bowl for the NFC for a little bit. And then I remember, when I look back at these tapes, there's like two heartbreaks is always the Bills and the Broncos. Well, I put John Elway just for him. Elway and the Bills. That was a recurring theme in the 80s and 90s, where those two heartbreaks. And then you transition to the 2000s. We had some great games. Air McNair versus Greatest Show on Turf. That is the greatest game I have ever rewatched and watched again. I can't stand enough of watching that game because that middle linebacker had a hook on that wide receiver, and then he jumped off and actually made that 1 yard line tackle. So that was probably one of the greatest plays in Super Bowl history. Because what happens if he would not made that tackle and they would go to overtime? Would the Titans win that game? I don't know, because it was back and forth at the end. and everybody thought the Rams was going to stomp the Titans because they were way ahead. By the time of the third quarter, it was like 16-3, 16-7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so who would have known what would happen? They even made it to overtime. And
yeah, and of course, the overtime rules at the time would have depended much on the coin flip because there was sudden death at the time.
Oh yeah, I loved it actually. I liked the overtime rule back then and now. I mean, it's still good. I don't really had a problem when they moved it to both have a possession. It still was interesting. I looked up a long time ago, and I had to re-look it up not too long ago either. That it was a story about the Raiders center Barrett Robbins went rogue. He went rogue in Super Bowl 37, and he went missing and missed the whole. Got suspended for the game. And they also said Bill Callahan threw that game away for John Gruden. Man, that was a crazy story, man.
Yeah, it's pretty well documented that John Gruden and the Buccaneers coaching staff pretty much had a complete line on the Raiders play calls and everything. And there's audio from the Buccaneers secondary, John Lynch, drawing a blank, the former Florida State linebacker, Derek, good Lord, number 55. Derek Brooks. And of those guys basically just calling it out, like they're doing this, they're doing that. Oh man, Rich Gannon threw 5 picks. Yes.
Rich Gannon, man, he was a guy, man. I mean, I've seen a video with John Gruden with Rich Gannon, and everybody's like, oh my God, I remember it. And I've seen on the comments, I was like, I like Rich Gannon. He's just not that good versus the Bucs that year. I mean, they had some good players on that Bucs team, and they should have won in one more Super Bowl, too.
Yeah, their defense was loaded.
They should have won one more. And there's many teams that had, like, if you look at the Colts with Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, and Marvin Harrison, they should have won in a couple more Super Bowls, too. Terrell Owens and Donovan McNabb should have won the Patriots and Eagle game, one of the greatest games, period, in the Super Bowl history. Terrell Owens with a broken leg, wherever he had, and still playing on the field and almost got him a victory. That should have, been an incredible Super Bowl performance if he would have won. And he didn't, so not a lot of people remembers like I do and you do. I really think the Super Bowl has really changed over the years too, Mark. Back then, it starts with the little things like the logo, and I know it's not a big deal. Logos are just logos, but I think it adds to the prestige. If you look at it now, it looks like it's just a brand, just like one single brand. It has nothing on it, barely. It looks terrible. But you look before Super Bowl 45, it looks really good. I mean, it adds mystique to it, adds an aura. Super Bowl 37 had the the light, what is that called? Sea ship light thing. Knows in San Diego. I mean, I think it's little things that matter. And also the players that made up the Super Bowl back then from the 60s all the way to the 2000s. Those were big name players. Now, even though these players nowadays are really good and well known, they don't have that aura to them. And maybe I'm just talking about nostalgia, but they don't have that recognition or that big time play, you would expect out of these guys, except for one player. And I like JSN. Now, JSN, he's a player, man. He reminds me of Marvin Harrison a little bit. I really like him. I mean, he's good. He reminds me of Torrey Holt too. So I always want the Super Bowl to go back to where it was, Mark. These days, it just don't have that prestige to it like it used to be. It starts from the little things to the players. It's like it's not there. And the performances in the halftime is atrocious. I don't know what that was. It's like the last decade, this Super Bowl have these medley of songs. They can't even get through a whole song. They go like one verse of one song, and they went to 2 or 3 more songs and within a song, and they all terrible. The last great performance was probably Justin Timberlake when he had that wardrobe malfunction with Janet Jackson.
I have not watched a Super Bowl halftime in at least 20 years.
Oh man, I'm glad you didn't. They're terrible.
I don't care to watch the Super Bowl halftime. I don't know who's on the Super Bowl halftime. I do remember the wardrobe malfunction. I thought that was just dumb. It was just a publicity gimmick.
I think so too.
Just to be cutting edge, whatever that means. Yeah, I thought that was stupid. And
I'll tell you what broke that. It was the Shakira and Jennifer Lopez thing. I don't know what that was. It was a big meme back.
I don't know anything about that. Yeah,
it was a big meme.
The wardrobe malfunction might be the last time I ever watched it. I don't recall, except
Lord have mercy.
My son's first Super Bowl. I think this was Steelers Cardinals, so this would have been since then. First year my son had interest in the NFL and was watching the Super Bowl with me, and Bruce Springsteen was the Super Bowl halftime act, and my son actually just laughed. He thought that Bruce Springsteen, he didn't know who Bruce Springsteen was, first of all. And he thought he was trying to be horrible. He thought it was a joke.
Ouch. God dang.
Yes.
He's not living the glory days.
No, well, Mark. I don't like his politics, but I like Bruce Springsteen as an artist. At least I did at the time. I could care less to listen to him now, but I think he should have shelved it about 20 years ago. But I was amused at my son's response at Bruce Springsteen, thinking this guy's so bad, this must be a joke.
He didn't have that auto tune, Mark, and he also couldn't live his glory days.
Well, yeah. Good pun there. Good job.
Hey, man, let me ask you this, Mark. If there was one Super Bowl in the 2000s, which Super Bowl would you go back to?
Oh, the best Super Bowl?
In the 2000s.
The best one. Wow, there's a lot of great ones. The Eagles over the Patriots, whatever that's final was, like 40-35. That was a great game. When Brady threw for like 500 yards, but Nick Foles pulled it out. That was a great game. Defense, Eagles defense sacked Brady to end the game. Of course, the Brady comeback against Falcons, that was phenomenal. I remember I was at ESPN and it's 28-3, and I'm telling everyone this game's not over. This game's not quite over. This guy, has had to pull out a comeback. I think this is a close call. But even though I didn't like how it finished, because they should have given the ball to Marshawn Lynch, I thought the Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl was a classic.
It was. Don't tell me, are you an England Patriot under disguise, Mark?
No.
No?
No. I hated the Patriots. Hated the Patriots. Never rooted for the Patriots.
You got to be some Tom Brady jersey back there now, Mark.
No.
Oh, Lord. What was your favorite team then? And who was your NFL team?
Well, I explained this to somebody the other day. I grew up a Cowboys fan.
Oh, wow.
I was a diehard Ohioan in everything except for the NFL. I grew up a Cowboys fan, but once the Cowboys fired Tom Landry, I'm a very loyalist type, and I was done with the Cowboys. Even though I liked Aikman, I liked the trio. So when they won Super Bowls, I was fine with that, but my heart wasn't in it. So I was just a huge NFL fan, but I didn't really have a team. And when the Browns got decimated and destroyed and were banned from the league and moved to Baltimore, and then they came back in 1999, I basically decided, as a true Ohioan, Northeast Ohioan, I would root for the Browns. They would be my team, but they never.
Do you think they ever reached the Super Bowl?
I don't care. They never, moved me one way or the other. So, no, I only rooted against teams in the Super Bowl. I never really rooted for anyone. I liked Peyton Manning. I would root for him in Super Bowls.
Oh, I like Peyton Manning. Oh, dude. Imagine he had a couple more. He should have went to a couple more Super Bowls. There was a lot left on the table. He left.
Yeah,
Especially with
well, if
that
his
roster.
liquored up kicker would have made a kick against the Steelers, they probably would have.
Damn, you're throwing shade at Mike Vanderjagt.
Mike Vanderjagt. And I've had Mike Vanderjagt on here, and he was very nice. But
Oh, Lord.
I just saw that clip recently where Peyton Manning called him out at the Pro Bowl.
Oh, yeah, that was funny. Oh,
Our
Lord.
idiot kicker got liquored up and ran his mouth.
Oh, man, Peyton hated that guy after that, too. he never liked that guy. I'll tell you what, I was a Steeler guy for Big Ben.
All right. Yeah.
I was a big Ben guy, and they had Troy Polamalu. My mom loves Troy Polamalu, and they had a good defense and they had a good stretch. They could have had some more Super Bowls too. The Steelers and Colts should have went to more Super Bowls than they did.
Well, you've told us that the Steelers, the Colts,
Eagles.
I forget who else. You're running out of Super Bowls to give away to people.
I mean, there was a lot more on the table with these teams. They had some good teams, like Big Ben with Hines Ward and Plesko Burris. You would think they had at least another one or two, but you had Tom Brady that took most of them. So
sure.
And then you had, the AFC was kind of stacked at that point.
Yep.
And the Eagles, who were they had besides the Eagles at that point? And Michael Vick and the Falcons weren't doing nothing. So they were good in the early 2000s, so I couldn't throw them in there. The Bucks at that point, and John Gruden has washed out. So, you didn't really have many teams in the NFC that could challenge these AFC teams, whoever it came out of that conference. It was like a total switch because in the 80s and through the 70s, the 80s, all that was a lot of NFC. A lot of NFC until the 90s.
All right, Trey, I better move it along here.
All right. Last thing I'll say.
Yes.
To the last guy about defense, Jack Tatum and Ronnie Lott, best two guys ever on defense in the NFL in the 70s and 80s. I like Ronnie Lott. Not all about Joe Montana. You got to have defense to win Super Bowl.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate Trey being here. Yes, we'll give some credit to the Niners defense. Ronnie Lott. I'll give you some names. Dave Buns, Keena Turner, Hacksaw Reynolds, Eric Hicks, Dwight Hicks, Eric Wright, Carlos Williamson. There's your secondary right there. They had 3 first-round draft picks in their secondary. And the first time they won the Super Bowl, 3 of them were rookies. Appreciate Doreen being here. Doreen's going to be happy regardless of who wins the game because a Buckeye, at least one Buckeye, wins a Super Bowl. So Doreen's happy anyway. But she'll be especially happy with a Buckeye Super Bowl victory one way or the other. You may lean Mike Vrabel since he is the coach. All right, Michael Hogue stopping by. Michael, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, good to see you again. At least I can take you off the missing persons list.
You can do that if you have a personal missing persons list.
I'm just messing with you. So how's things been going for you since we last talked after the national championship?
Excellent. Things are just fine. How are things with you?
Yeah, same old, but different subject for a different day. I gotta actually just Tyler brought it up and stuff like that. What was the reason back in I think it was from 84 all the way to like 2001 that the NFC pretty much had a stranglehold on the Super Bowls, in your opinion? After the Raiders beat Redskins. Oh, and I still think Marcus Allen's touchdown run was the greatest play in the history of the Super Bowl.
That's a good call. That's a difficult list to make, but I can't argue with that, folks. If you're not aware, Marcus Allen. So this is the 83 season, 84 Super Bowl. Eventually ran for 191 yards. Super Bowl MVP. Raiders, Redskins. Actually, Washington was a 3-point favorite. Raiders won 38-9. Marcus Allen, great play where he has a sweep and there's penetration and he just digs in and reverses field and runs all the way across field behind the line of scrimmage and then sprints. And with that beautiful stride, Marcus Allen, one of the great strides in the history of football, just unique running style, sprints for the touchdown. Raiders blasted Washington. Yes, one of the great plays ever.
And another thing was the year before with John Riggins. I mean, it wasn't as long as Marcus Allen, because I think Marcus Allen ran like 100 yards on that play.
I think it was 72.
But no, I mean,
off the top of my head.
When I figured the way he was going before he cut back.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah.
But no, I think Riggins, that was like what, a 40-yard run.
That was a big deal because the Redskins were only up 20-17.
Yeah.
There might have been 5 minutes left in the game, something like that, 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and it was 4th and 1. So if Miami stops them, then they've got a short field. They're only down 4 to try to win, or down 3 to try to win the game, but Riggins scores, and that basically iced the game.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, was Don Strock the quarterback for the Dolphins, or was Bob Greasy still there then?
So Bob Greasy's last year was 1980.
Okay.
Actually, the starting quarterback. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a crazy blank.
Morrell, was it?
No. No. Earl Morrell was really old.
Okay.
I am drawing a crazy blank. LSU quarterback was the starting quarterback. He threw 1 touchdown in that game to Jimmy Cephalo.
Yeah.
And then Strock, they benched him. He was like 4 of 14.
Yeah.
Folks, look it up. 4 of 14. I got the stats. I got everything but his name. LSU starting quarterback. Anyway, he was kind of a runner. He was a scrambler type, but not a great NFL career. But Don Strock, yes. Strock was the guy that they brought in. And of course, that was the season after the famous game at the Orange Bowl against Dan Fouts and the Chargers. That was that seesaw Kellen Winslow game where that went to double overtime, and Winslow blocked 2 kicks and caught like 14 passes.
David Woodley.
Thank you. My goodness, my brain's malfunctioning. I could come up with everything, his school, his stats. I'm even telling you, he threw a 76-yard touchdown pass to Jimmy Cephalo in that game.
Yeah.
That was the first Super Bowl, also, Michael, where there was a kickoff return for a touchdown. Fulton Walker.
98 yards.
Yes, very good. Good for you.
Yep. And I think there's been, 4 or 5 kickoff returns in the history of the Super Bowl?
Well, we had won by the Giants for their only score.
Okay,
Ron
5.
Ron
Dixon, Jacoby,
Devin Hester,
Jacoby, what's his name? Jacoby, he played for the Ravens. Fulton Walker, and also Desmond Howard.
The Niners? The Ravens?
Yeah.
Niners game?
Yeah. In the infamous blackout game.
Yes.
I
Forgot
can't
about
think of
that
Jacoby's
one.
last name. Yep.
Yeah, I can't think of his last name
But
either.
Devin Hester's the only one that's done it to start the game, though.
Yes.
Because Jacoby and Devin and Desmond Howard was both start to second half, I think. Start to third quarter.
Yes. Now, I will tell you, I was watching, I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, I was watching Super Bowl 14 last night.
Don't get me talking about Jackie, because that made me sick to my stomach.
No, that was Super Bowl 13. I was watching the next year.
Okay.
I was watching Steelers-Rams. Just sat there and watched the game. I was like, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl game. I'm just going to pick a good game, and watch it. But Larry Anderson of the Steelers had an excellent kick return game. He had four for 170 some yards.
Yep.
But he didn't return any all the way.
But do you really think that was a good Super Bowl? Because in my opinion, I was 8 years old at the time, but in my opinion, the Steelers really dominated, controlled that game.
What?
Okay, Mark, do you remember?
They were losing in the fourth quarter. They were losing with 10 minutes left in the game.
How they ended up winning 31-19 then?
How were they dominating a game that they were losing with 10 minutes left? Michael, take it from me. They did not dominate the game.
Then how they end up winning 31-19 then?
You've never seen a 31-19 12-point game that was not a dominant performance?
Well, no, like I
Have
said,
you
Mark,
watched football, Michael?
Mark,
Please.
I was like I said, I was 8 years old at the time. I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
when I seen the score, the way the score was, I was thinking Pittsburgh pretty much controlled the. That's what I was thinking at the time.
I'm guessing that at some point between being 8 years old in 1980 and now, that you could have readjusted your perception and thoughts on such things.
I mean, yeah, and I'll end up watching the game again soon. It's just that's just what I remember and stuff like that. So,
Michael, the game was 24-19 with 4 minutes left, and the Rams were in the red zone
okay,
to take the lead.
all right. Like I said, I'll have to watch the game because like you said, you forgot. I forgot too, but I was a lot younger then too. So
Yeah,
at least
you're
that.
younger than me. I'm a lot. I've got
No,
some
you're not
years
that
on
much.
you.
You're not that much older than I am, sir. But I digress.
I've
no,
got
what-
a few years on you.
Well, I hit double nickel this year, but I digress. Hey, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Pat Hayne the quarterback of the Rams still?
He was the starting quarterback, but he got hurt that year. Vince Ferragamo was starting the game.
Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, did they have like a drive that got thwarted by like a couple penalties? That was kind of iffy, I think.
I don't recall that, but that's possible.
Well, I
don't
mean, because you
recall
said
that.
you watched the game last night.
Well, I
That's why
did
was
watch the
asking.
game last night. I was taking in every play and was watching a game that I remembered 25 plays before I ever watched the game. So I've got a
Okay.
pretty good handle on the game and the stats and how the game went. But I don't recall, the Rams having a drive thwarted by penalties, but that's possible. Lynn Swann got knocked out in the fourth quarter. He got dumped
Yep.
on his head and had a concussion.
Mm,
It was a great game. It's a great
yeah,
game.
not bad. But no, I was gonna say, who do you think was the better receiver back then, Star Wars or Swan?
Who's the better receiver?
Yeah, I would have to go with Stallworth.
Well, I think Lynn Swann was a better player earlier in his career, and Stallworth then emerged a little bit later.
Yeah,
Of course, Lynn Swann was the more heralded player. He was more famous.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
But
do believe they're both in the Hall of Fame. I saw a
Yeah.
stat where that Cowboys-Steelers Super Bowl had 26 Hall of Famers in that game.
Yeah, they did. And stuff like that. And speaking of the Hall of Fame, I know it's all Super Bowls, but what was your take about Belichick getting snubbed?
Oh, I think it's ridiculous. I'm no huge Bill Belichick fan, but I don't know why he would be snubbed and not be a first ballot Hall of Famer with all he accomplished. I don't know what else the man could have done. He's
Yeah.
arguably the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. I'm not saying that he is for sure, but he's
Mhm.
arguably that.
And I mean, I'm a Colts fan, and I have a lot of respect for Belichick, for especially what he did with defense and stuff like that. Another thing I'm trying to use this. All right, Baltimore, the '85 Bears defense, the 2001, the 2000 season Baltimore Ravens, and some say the 2003 Buccaneers defense. Do you think those are the best three defenses of the Super Bowl era?
Well, how about the Steel Curtain?
Sure. But which time though?
I'd start with them.
Okay. But why is nobody mentioning them in the best defenses of all time? There's
Who
always say
doesn't?
it's either a lot of people say it's either the '85 Bears or the 2000 Ravens.
Yes. You're hanging around the wrong crowds, looking at the
Yeah.
wrong lists.
True. And I know that ABC, and I'm not sure, but when Pittsburgh when Cowher won the Super Bowl in 2005 against Steelers, did you have the honor and privilege of working the game, even though it was ABC/ESPN?
Did I have the honor of working the game?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't work any games. That wasn't my deal.
Oh, I didn't know if you actually had to go to venue sometimes to work
Nope.
games and stuff.
No, thankfully, no. I stayed in Bristol.
Nice, not bad. No, I was just wondering stuff like that. So, yeah, that's about all I got and stuff like that. So, the Steelers get. I mean, another thing too. A lot of people think Marshawn Lynch should have got the ball. I did some research after the game. The 5 times that year, I think he had like the goal to go situation inside the 5. he only scored one time. So do you agree that he should have got the ball, or what do you think he should have done? Or do you agree with the play call?
All right. So I'd have to go back for sure and look at down and distance, but I believe it was only second down.
Mm-hmm.
And they were at the 3,
I think
roughly.
so. Yeah.
I don't know how you don't run one of the toughest runners in the NFL in that situation. I don't know why you opt to throw the ball in a crowd.
Sure. Yep. And I was just wondering stuff like that. Best catch in Super Bowl history: David Terrell's or Mario Manningham's.
Wow. The best catch in Super Bowl history. How about Lynn Swan's catches?
Oh, they was nice.
The one he made at midfield against the Cowboys in Super Bowl 10. How about
the one where he stretched out?
Yeah, where he tips it up in the air to himself.
Yeah.
How about is it Brandon LaFell that made a lot of great catches? He made one great catch against the Patriots in that same game.
Oh,
the one that he barely keeps off the ground. And how about the Julian Edelman catch against
that was a great catch
Atlanta?
Too. I got that as number 2 of other. But I thought that was who was that receiver for Seattle back then? Because then he catched a touchdown to win the clinch NFC when they beat Green Bay.
Yeah, maybe somebody can help us out. That's who I came up with.
Like
I'm not sure that it was Brandon LaFell.
No, I can't remember who that was. Oh, I will say this. I will go. Yes, I know New Orleans beat the Colts in Super Bowl 44, but to this day, I've still not watched the game, but I will never watch the game.
No?
No.
Maybe I'll watch that tonight.
Because my allegiance, because those both my teams.
Why is New Orleans your team? Because of Drew Brees?
Yeah. And and when I've grown up, I don't know if your son played football when he was in grade school, because the name of the team I was the Saints, and also was a Colts fan too. So, but speaking of which, do you think people can have a team from the NFC and from the AFC since they're two different conferences?
I am not a big fan of multiple teams.
Okay.
Pick a team. Who's your team? Like, I'm not a big fan of having. I'm an Ohio State fan, and everybody else I hate. I don't have another team. But that's me personally. I don't believe in having multiple teams running around all over the place.
Yep, and I'm surprised you was never a Cincinnati Bengals fan, especially when Ken Anderson was quarterbacking.
No, I lived 5 hours from Cincinnati. It's not a Cincinnati fan. And I got to figure out who made this catch for Seattle.
Doug Baldwin.
Matthews.
It was Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin.
Yes. Because it kind of reminded me of the Antonio.
Baldwin. No.
Yeah, it was.
Doug Baldwin had one reception for 3 yards. How could it have been Doug Baldwin?
No, who was it then? Wait a minute, it couldn't be him. Was it?
I'm talking about there was a throw way down the right sideline.
I remember. I thought it was Baldwin, but no.
You know what I'm talking about? And he
or was it? Hang on. Was it Lockett?
It had to either be Matthews, Lockett, or Jermaine Kearse. It had to be one of those three guys because they only had the longest plays. Yeah. It had to be one of those three guys. I don't remember.
Because it kind of reminded me of the Antonio Freeman catch on Monday Night Football.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That's what it looked like. Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. I think it was looking up and stuff like that. So
maybe somebody knows in the chat. Jermaine Kearse is what Nolan is telling us. Yeah. So we'll go with that. Well, he also threw out Chris Matthews. Well, anyway, it's one of those guys.
Yeah. Yep. I was just wondering stuff like that. Okay, I got to pick. So college football. Because I think he was on during the recruiting and stuff like that. But I thought you won't be on again until what? Spring football starts in about 6 weeks?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'm either going to be on tomorrow or I'm going to be on anytime the rest of the year. I do not have a schedule.
Okay. I was just wondering stuff like that.
I don't know when I'm going to be on. All right, Michael. Appreciate you being here.
All right, I gotta ask you this: who you pick? Does Seattle get their revenge tomorrow?
I would be flipping a coin. I have no idea. I've not watched these teams play. I don't know how good they are. They're obviously two of the best teams. I'm guessing Seattle's better.
That's what I'm thinking. All right, sir. It's been
Thanks,
an honor and
Michael.
privilege. Take care. See you.
Appreciate it. All right. Yes, the great catch down the sideline by the Seattle receiver. I think it was, yeah, it's one of those guys up top, one of those top three guys. Anywho, the real MVP's here.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. This Super Bowl is very interesting because these are two teams that really nobody expected to be here. Seattle was 60-1 entering the season. New England was 80-1 to make it.
Wow.
New England wins. It'd be the largest spread-wise upset for a team to enter the season since the '99 Rams, the greatest show on turf team. So it's interesting how even though the NFL to me is not as parody driven as people claim it is. I don't understand the parody narrative. Every once in a while, you'll get a random matchup like this, but you look over the history of the NFL, you were talking about it with the Redskins, the Steelers, the Cowboys, 49ers, the New England Patriots, and Kansas City. But I think these Super Bowl matchups is what gives other teams that have been historically bad hope of making the Super Bowl. Do you agree with me that the NFL's parody narrative is overstated?
I will say this. This one very much reminds me of recent collections of Big Ten teams and the standings of the Big Ten. That, first of all, if you're an old guy like me, you know that Pete Rozelle basically just trumpeted this term, that he wanted parity. He did not want Buffalo to feel left out and their fans to feel hopeless. He saw what was going on in Major League Baseball in particular, and he wanted to spread the wealth and everyone to be interested and excited about their teams. So, of course, the NFL draft plays into the parity, the scheduling. At whatever point they instituted the formula scheduling to give the better teams the tougher schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So when you build a narrative and you promote it, then that gets ingrained in people's heads, even if the results don't back it up. So the Big Ten popped into my head when you asked that question, because for a long, long time, the winner of the Big Ten was practically predetermined, but the rest of the league was, once you got about 2 or 3 spots down, was a mess, and you didn't know who was going to finish where. And so I would say that I don't have stats in my head to back this up, but I know that I've seen stretches of time where it's been shown that playoff teams in the NFL kind of churn, that in particular years, there might be 9 new playoff teams out of 14 spots. But I think, to your point, at the very top, that there have been dominant teams, much like your Kansas City Chiefs, obviously, are the best example in recent memory over the last decade. And then New England Patriots, the 20 years before that, that pretty much locked in their best elite dynasty status and were basically not challenged. So I think it's a little bit of both. There was a run of years there, DeReal, and you would know this if you thought about it, that basically there was a run of years from like 2001, Brady's first Super Bowl, all the way to like his last Super Bowl, at least with the Patriots, where Brady, Manning, or the Steelers and Ravens represented the AFC for like 20 some years. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
Ever since 2010, either the Kansas City Chiefs or New England Patriots have been in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it's insane. To me, it's college football-esque where people perceive its parity because like 9, 10, 8, 7, 11, 12 are going to constantly change year
Yes.
over year. But Ohio, like right now, a single game hasn't been played, Mark. Most of the rosters haven't even been finalized. But I can say with like 95% of certainty that Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Oregon are all going to make the college football playoff this year
Yep.
because of a combination of their talent, their schedule, and just how lack of challenge they're going to be this year. Meanwhile, at the bottom, like it wouldn't shock me if Oklahoma missed it, Texas A&M, Miami, Tulane, and James Madison are almost assuredly to miss the college football playoff. And if you look at it from 2 years ago to this year in the college football playoff, I think half the field was different from 1 year over to the other because there was just constant churn at the bottom. I think that is what the NFL does, but I don't know if they market it better or more fans perceive it as different because they have a chance to make the big game, whereas in college football it isn't. So I'm a little bit confused as why we have this narrative in college football. There's not as much parity, whereas in the NFL there's all sorts of parity when it doesn't based on the results. Doesn't seem like there's as much parity in the NFL, and there's a lot more parity in college football than people are describing.
Well, I think you hit on the number of entries into a playoff very much sways perception considerably. That if you only had 4 spots, if you had just a conference championship game in the NFL, much like the 4-team college football playoff, and you only had the 2 top seeds in the AFC and the NFC play a conference championship game and nobody else made the playoffs, you would have a very different look. Well, first of all, you'd have teams approach the regular season and December differently because they would know we have to be one of the top 2 seeds. So the better teams would be even, more laser focused on definitely being and not sacrificing everything to just be 13-4 just for the sake of being 13-4 when they know, okay, let's rest players. We're kind of comfortable where we are. We know we're going to have to play in the first round anyway. Let's just be a 4 seed, big deal. So that would play out differently. But yeah, we would have a much different perception of the parity if the entry points were different in both sports.
That's fair. I wanted to ask you a bit about college football, if since
Sure,
this is a college football show. North Dakota State is
Yep.
apparently relocating to the Mountain West. They've entered the transfer portal as an entire university. To me, for the Mountain West, this is a massive get. This legitimately could be a college football playoff team next year. I know it's crazy since they didn't do well in the FCS playoffs. They got upset by Illinois State, but this is a genuine powerhouse at the FCS level, and they've beaten not just Power 4 teams, but good Power 4 teams like Iowa and Kansas State previously. So if they're able to beat those teams at the top, I would think against much lesser competition, they can roll on in there and even play a bad football game and squeak out some wins. And all you got to do is be the highest ranked G5 team. You don't even have to win your conference to make the college football playoff. So I think North Dakota State is a legitimate contender to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, we've often focused on the overlap of the Power 4 and the Group of 5 and the Tulanes of the world, and how much better are they than certain Power 4s versus the dozens of Group of 5 teams that are not as good as the very best of the FCS, and how those FCS schools would fare. And now we see many of the really competitive G5 teams that have just entered that level of play in the last 5 years have, like James Madison, of course, and others have become very competitive, and some of the best G5s very quickly from the FCS. So yeah, North Dakota State has been an exceptional program. Sure.
in terms of the broader picture, also for West Coast supremacy between them and the Mountain West, I'm looking at the universities. The Mountain West has like UNLV, Grand Canyon, North Dakota State now. And there's an argument that long term they're more successful than the new Pac 12 is. Like, even right now, if somebody wanted to come on and say, hey, I think the Mountain West is going to be better at football over the next decade than the Pac 12, I mean, yeah, the Pac 12 has Boise State, but outside of that, they got nobody who's worth anything. Whereas I think the Mountain West has a bunch of programs that are very comparable to the Pac 12. I don't think the Pac 12 nearly backfilled as well as they could have done by just grabbing a bunch of state schools.
Yeah, I'd have to do a deep dive to look at the recent history of those schools outside of Boise State. They're the obvious outlier that it has been the most successful school in that conference. But I agree with you. There's no definite lean as to which conference is going to be better in football by any stretch.
Right, which makes me curious of why these schools like Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State decided to even leave the Mountain West in the first place. I mean, the Mountain West seems like they've got a good commissioner who understands her role and what she's trying to do, whereas the Pac-12 just kind of seems all over the place, and they don't really have a course of action.
Yeah, I don't know if something was stuck in their minds concerning the past and always wanting to elevate to, well, what previously was true power conference football and now would be perceived in their minds as just a name, just the Pac-12. And I don't know if, despite their poor play the last couple of seasons, that Washington State and Oregon State still hold some level of allure to those schools to say we think that they are usually pretty decent in football. And yeah, I don't know how much of that was orchestrated together. I would say, so who do we have? I'd have to see the list of teams on the surface. I do think that the ones that went to the Pac-12, Boise State, you mentioned Fresno State and San Diego State, and then the two that are already there.
Yeah, and they got Texas State as well.
And certainly the ones that I just mentioned are proven to be generally the best of the G5, or, in that top 10 G5 type area.
I agree with that. I'm confused because they had to pay the exit fee. They have to move conferences. They have to do a bunch of logistical stuff. If you're already in the conference and it's arguable, why not just stay? Because like Oregon State this year in football may have been one of the 5 or 10 worst teams in all of college football. They went 2-10. They were like 0-7 at one point. They lost to Sam Houston State. Honestly, and they have the best, and this is why I believe one of the reasons Big 12 was so bad. Big 12, their second or third best team in Houston, went to overtime against Oregon State. That might be the worst win of the entire season last year, Mark. So I just think the Pac-12 is in a bad way. I don't think, it wouldn't shock me if they died again, to be completely honest with you. I know they died once, they might die again.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it enough to have a strong opinion about what you're bringing up, but I think it is interesting to possibly explore, because I don't know if they are suffering from outdated thinking that these state schools have an advantage and the brand Pac-12 has an advantage. I know that that's outdated thinking. I don't think that, I think your average college football fan is educated enough to know that that really doesn't mean anything anymore. But I don't know. And now with a revenue share and with NIL and everything, you have to look at these schools much differently, and you have to look at them individually and not assume that Washington State and Oregon State are going to build better football programs and have more resources than fill in the blank, Hawaii or someone, because that's not necessarily the case anymore.
Right. I think Hawaii is joining the Mountain West, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, as soon as I said that, I was thinking, I don't even remember what the split is.
But something I also wanted to ask you about your conference rankings, Mark, just
Yes.
an approach question, is, to me, every sport outside of college football, when they have the selection committee and stuff, they'll highlight overtime games in gray to distinguish that, hey, this game was basically a tie. You can use that in your calculations. I'm curious as to why you're not more emphasizing overtime matchups, because to me, if a team wins or loses in overtime, especially double overtime onwards, it's just a random spin at the wheel at that point, because it's 2-point conversion. And that doesn't really tell me if Team A is better than Team B. And the example I'm using is Michigan State versus Boston College. I mean, Boston College went up to Michigan State, lost in double overtime by 2 points. To me, that's a pretty good result for the ACC. I know they're like seeded teams, but you consider home field advantage, that's a 3-point swing. I think there's a case that despite the result of the games, the metrics and stuff would say Boston College actually performed better than Michigan State in that game.
Yeah, so I do agree with you. And if you look at my top 25, that actually makes sense. The actual notes that I take, and sometimes I show those when we're having those conversations. What I do is I list out all the teams in the country and I just keep track of their results. And I just have, let's say, Georgia, and it says Florida 17, Kentucky 31, which means they beat those teams and they beat them by those point differentials, and then backslash and then their losses, and the same thing. And if it went to overtime, I just put OT, and that tells me, well, they won the game in overtime. Whether they won by 7 or 8 or 3 or 1 doesn't matter, just that they made the plays in overtime to win the game. And like you say, because of the nature of overtime and the overtime format, I think it's less valid, the differentiation between the two teams. The further they go into overtime, it just becomes it's a bit random who just pulls off a play from the 1.5 yard line. But it is another football play. I am always going to give validity to the result. And so when Boston College is a 16 seed out of 17 teams in the ACC, and Michigan State's a 16 out of 18. And even those seedings are, for as much as I went with the standings, I was looking at some of them thinking, in some of these conferences, is there really a difference between 12 and 17? And I could have made all sorts of judgment calls. UCLA technically is a higher seed in the Big Ten than Penn State. They won the football game. They beat them head to head. They both went 3-6. But I think by looking at the rest of Penn State's results, you would see that they played with Indiana. They played with Ohio State. They beat Clemson, etc. That they played with Iowa, much better football team than UCLA. But technically, UCLA finished higher in the seedings. So I wasn't going to, again, there's a practicality to this exercise that I'm not having some foundation throw $10,000 on my head to produce,
No, I get that.
Work for that long. So I try to do it so it's legitimate. But again, I'm not going to dissect every seeding.
No, I totally get that.
And the overtime portion of it, you're right. At some point, if you would see my notes, and I just take screenshots of my notes basically and show those, is at some point in that I reverted to what I do for the top 25 and keep track of these teams. And yes, consider overtime basically as a tie game, but somebody did win the game, but that it's a tie game, and it doesn't, it's almost a closer game winning by 8 points in overtime than winning by 3 points in regulation.
I think it
I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I would just give it as a +0 or a -0. Plus if they win, minus if they lose.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
really
I
don't
would do.
think, because overtime games are so rare. I don't know what the percentage of games that go into overtime in college football. That would be an interesting stat. I bet it's about 3%. That I don't know that point differential really is changing anything.
No, but if you do it enough times with 3%, it'll change somewhat. And it'll change a little bit. But the next thing I was going to ask you about is you haven't done your SEC rankings, but because of non-conference results, you can kind of guesstimate where the SEC is. And what's curious to me is you have Texas A&M, I think, third.
Yes, I went by the standings. I went by the standings in the league, yeah.
I just can't justify. I don't see how that's justifiable that Texas A&M's through, because I understand they went 7-1. Totally get that. But you look at their game results, 7 out of the 8 teams they beat were in the bottom. All 7 wins were at the bottom half the SEC. And the thing to me that really tells me they're not the top 3 SEC teams is they weren't cruising and dominating the bad teams. They were struggling week after week after week against Arkansas, against South Carolina, and et cetera, and on and on. Whereas even Vanderbilt dominated bad competition. Alabama dominated bad comp. Everyone else in 6-2 and better dominated the bad competition except for Texas A&M. So to me, they're clearly the 7th best team in the SEC.
Yeah, again, I don't disagree with you, but I wasn't, outside of Miami's the only team that I took some liberties to say, okay, this team obviously just ran through a playoff gauntlet and showed that they were the best team in the ACC, so I'm going to elevate them. And it did cross my mind to continue to do that, but I did not. I chose not to. And those are the standings as listed, that Ole Miss is actually number 1 in the SEC, even though Georgia won the SEC championship. That Ole Miss won the rematch, made it further in the playoffs. So they're being listed as with having, as you know, the same record in the conference as Georgia. So it's Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas A&M, better record than Bama overall. Bama lost an SEC game, of course, in the championship game, and then a playoff game. So anyway, that's the way it's listed. Even though Bama won a playoff game. So, yeah.
No, I get that. But to me, the reason it matters is if you're Texas A&M and you have them at 3, them beating Notre Dame, 3 versus 1 isn't nearly as impressive as 7 versus 1. Or 7 going against Miami as close as they are is much more impressive than 3 going against 1.
Absolutely.
So I do think because of the substantial of the gap itself, it needs to, when you have small gaps like 3 or 4, 5 and 6, who cares at the end of the day? 1 seed isn't, but when you got a 4 seed differentiation and gap, I think that's pretty massive. And it could legitimately affect the entire conference balance because of how close this year the SEC and Big Ten are at the top to bottom.
It could. Yes.
Now,
you are right. Now, there was one point made in the chat, and I agree with it, that, it does matter who wins the game in overtime. Again, I do designate and do differentiate the overtime game, but if we're gonna consider that like a tie, then of sorts, then you can start to peel that back to, well, one team won on the last play of the game. It was a tie the whole game. Then they won on the last play of the game. How close is that game versus a game where a team's winning by 14 the whole game, and then the other team scores a touchdown late and they only win by 7? You can.
Yes, there is a bunch of nuance that can go into this. To me, the reason I put overtime in a different category is because it's outside the normal game flow. Every game has a 60-minute period. And if you're not able to prove yourself better than another team within the 60 minutes, that does say something about your caliber of football team. You have to do something outside the normal rules and the normal system to win the game. And again, every metric and every committee, college baseball, college basketball, uses overtime in this differentiation way. So if none of the other sports looked at it differently, I would have no problem looking at it the same. But since every sport looks at it differently, then I think it's obligation that we should also look at it differently.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Final thing I'll say is this: you are what your record says you are mentality. The difference between college basketball and college football is monumental. I don't know if you've watched any college basketball, Mark, at all this season, but exactly. Well, there's this team called Miami of Ohio, some random MAC team. They're currently 24-0.
I did hear that. Yes.
Yes, they haven't lost a single game, but bracketologists believe if they lose 2 or 3 games, they're completely out of the tournament because they've played nobody. And I think it would be beneficial for college football if we look at teams like Miami of Ohio, say, you haven't played anybody, you're out. We need to do things where these teams are playing a bunch of non-conference games and we need to punish them. Like Texas A&M is choosing to avoid playing anybody for the entire season. How can we properly judge a team that is choosing to avoid competition of equal status?
Well, I would draw a difference in conclusion between those two scenarios because Texas A&M did not make its SEC schedule and they went to Notre Dame.
That's true. That is true.
So that's why scheduling needs to be changed. It's not Texas A&M's fault. They do have to be evaluated based on the wins and losses presented. So when I'm not,
it's hard because
good example. When somebody goes out and schedules a should be, would be strong non-conference game, but that said game does not turn out to be a good game or a good team, I don't criticize that program for scheduling that game because they intended to play a difficult game, but you still have to evaluate the game that they played and the opponent they played.
Absolutely. I can agree with that. Intent to schedule is something committees through other sports look at as well. Like if you play a power league and they just happen to be bad, then you can get away with it. But I'm using not Texas A&M, but Texas Tech for this year because they chose to play nobody outside of, I think, Washington State or Oregon State in non-conference play.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, you're in the Big 12. You chose to play nobody. You go 12-1. I think there's an argument 9-3 Ohio State, 9-3 Michigan belong in the playoffs over you because they play 4 top 10 teams most likely this year, whereas Texas Tech is playing 0 top 15 teams, even if BYU and Utah take a slight step back. Sorry. I know it's unfair. I know schedules are unequitable, but if you wanted to solve that, then conference alignment has to be completely undone. And to me, that's just unrealistic.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Daryl, anything else?
No, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to this new version of the 12-team playoff we got this year. Thankfully, we're not expanding. Massive W for everybody who's anti-expansion.
All right, there's the book. No longer should I call this a new book. I'll change that banner, but it is a book. It's the same quality of book as it was when it was new in the fall of 2024. So it's been out about a year and a half. So it's college football's historical look at the 1990s. It's a reset of the 1990s, disputed national champions. No, we are just not debating when there was a Michigan-Nebraska split or Miami-Washington split in 1991. Every season is diagnosed during the 1990s. As you can see, it's not a long read, but it is complete. I will not call it exhaustive, but complete, where each and every season, I set up the season in regards to the expected contenders for the national championship. Like 1990, I got to look at the preseason and the expected factors, influencers in college football, then the preseason AP poll and coaches poll. Then I take you through the season, the big games, the big players, the big decisions, the big plays that decided games, the controversial calls, etc. Then I run through the postseason assignments. Then I run through the postseason, the results of the postseason, and then the final AP poll, coaches poll, who got left out, who got screwed, whether the vote was valid or credible. And then I run through if conference title games existed in 1990, what would they look like? We would have had an ACC championship game of Georgia Tech and Virginia. We would have had a Big Ten championship game of, listen to this rundown. Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, and Illinois. There was a 4-way tie for first place in the Big Ten. Tennessee and Florida would have played in the SEC championship game in 1990. Then I have if conference title games existed in that conference, but in today's SEC. We would have had Texas against Florida in 1990. Then I run through the Bowl Championship Series, what that would have looked like, what that outcome would have been in 1990, and then a 14-team playoff, a 12-team playoff, and a 14-team playoff. So you have it all right there. There's your 14-team playoff in 1990. Imagine this today. Colorado number 1, Georgia Tech number 2, Texas 3, Washington 4, Tennessee 5, Michigan 6, Penn State 7, Miami 8, Notre Dame 9, Florida State 10, Houston 11, Florida 12, BYU 13, and Southern Miss 14. That's your 14-team playoff in 1990. Then I run through the aftermath. How did that season impact the history of college football? So it's not just a history book. We update it with 12-team and 14-team playoff fields, and we take that particular season and we run it through the BCS. We run it through the 14 playoff, and again, the 12-team and the 14-team. So disputed national champions. The link is in the description section of this video, just down below where it says disputed national champions. Also, you can just go on Amazon and look up disputed national champions. Don't let me tell you it's a good book. Let everyone else tell you it's a good book. Big time fishing action. I don't know what. All right. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We will see you next time.